Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and I've been thinking a lot about Total War 40K. Whether you think it's going to happen or not, the rumors are getting louder and louder, and it's something that is going to potentially be the flagship for a while. I'm imagining it's going to be some sort of trilogy too, because Games Workshop and Creative Assembly know that they can milk this for a lot of DLC and a lot of dinero. And the closer and closer that we get to a possible announcement, I've started thinking about, well, there's a few things that Creative Assembly need to lock down in a possible new engine before a Total War 40K comes out, because we need certain aspects of gameplay that we're used to in, well, more modern style warfare games, and obviously tabletop too, and obviously then some futuristic stuff. But the idea is the hypothetical new engine needs to have a certain amount of flexibility, and I want to talk about a few things that I expect to see, and I pray to the gods if they want this game to be good, it has to be done well. Okay, so the first one would be more terrain systems and just battle cover based mechanics. Whether or not it's 40K, Star Wars, or World War I, cover is going to be quite important. Now, not every faction in a 40k game is going to use cover mechanics and so on, but the idea is, look, if you go into Warhammer 3 or pretty much 3 Kingdoms and stuff like that, every now and then you get a little bit of a cliff, or maybe just a splodge of trees here and there, but the maps don't look good. Some of them just feel pretty barren, it's just a bit of a hill and that's it. And it's not so noticeable when it's a medieval warfare game or a fantasy game. However, once you start getting to more modern tech where tanks are involved, helicopters or whatever, it's definitely going to become a massive issue. So players are going to need a little bit more to play around with and get used to. I'm not saying overly complicate Total War, I don't think that this would overly do it, especially for a specific game here and there, but it definitely needs to have that push. Total War has been kind of playing on the same format always, which is why sieges are pretty awful too. I'm not saying every map needs to have destroyed buildings and this and that. Of course, it shouldn't be the majority, it should be the minority, but enough to be noticeable when you start going in. My idea is, like, if we're playing 40k, we're going to be jumping into loads of different planets, we're going to be fighting in loads of different biomes, map variety, and just little bits that you could use here. It's not just relying on a choke point map, by the way, which is awful, and make sure that you're not just fighting always in the corner. Use that middle part with loads of destroyed buildings to defend yourself. Use those mountain passes that cut right through the map. That's what we want, or at least that's what I want. Alright, the next one is diplomacy, and by the way, these aren't in any specific order, I'm just writing them down, and yeah, diplomacy is a big issue, because it's only gotten just, like, boring. Somehow it's gotten worse compared to, like, Rome 1 and Medieval 2 and so on. Then we had an amazing diplomacy system in 3 Kingdoms, which was grand. It was so thorough and had so many options, and then never again. Now, I've heard a rumor that maybe it's because the guy who coded that left Creative Assembly. And by the way, the random noises in the background are bats because I'm recording in the evening and they're just flying around. They're kind of common down here. But yeah, diplomacy needs to have a proper overhaul. This isn't even just like 40k and stuff like that. This is just in general. Going forward, diplomacy needs to be a big feature in Total War. Not only for gameplay purposes, well, mostly for gameplay purposes, but also for the sake of immersion. It's not just declare war and done, and then peace treaty randomly. Sometimes there's a bit more structure to it. I don't know about other people, but it really puts me off, even in Warhammer, where there's supposed to be diplomacy during the races, and it's not supposed to be that much, but it's still more thorough than this. So I'm expecting in, like, Med 3 to be able to get political marriages, if we get another 3 Kingdoms game, which I really think is pretty much not going to happen, but yeah, the same system that we had in the last one. It doesn't have to be a unique diplomacy thing. It doesn't have to be completely unique to every single different type of game that we'll get in the future, but it'll be incredibly disappointing if we get this rumored fancy new engine with all new bells and whistles, and it's essentially just Warscape 2.0. Actually, Warscape itself right now is in its 2.0. Warscape 3.0. So this next one might cause a few arguments, but naval battles, and technically space battles too if we look towards Star Wars and 40k. Yeah, this needs to come back. For the purpose of 40k, it desperately needs to come back because, I mean, yeah, you know it's so important. In a perfect world, they'd just copy the format that Battlefield Gothic 2 had, and, well, that's perfect. But it would probably be a bit more stripped down because this is still Creative Assembly after all. And when it comes to just historical games, I mean, World War One, you're expecting ship battles. If we get another medieval game, you're expecting ship battles. Empire 2, you're expecting ship battles. Now, a big reason was given for no ship battles in Total War Pharaoh in a recent Q&A where it said that nobody played them and they wanted to focus more on the map. Fair enough for Pharaoh. Makes perfect sense for Pharaoh. It's Bronze Age stuff. You're not really going to get really unique ships. But when it comes to like more, you know, 700s onwards, or, well, even with the Rome setting too, which already had a little bit more, that needs to be here, right? It needs to be represented. The problem is that ship battles, naval combat, naval warfare has always been pretty awful when it's been made by Creative Assembly, and even I am not ignorant to that fact. But one thing is very clear is that we've been losing out over the years, we've been losing out mechanics that, yeah, form part of the basis of Total War. It's kind of odd how the more modern the game gets, the more stripped down it's been a little bit. Now, they've done a lot for it for Warhammer, for example. There's loads of unique mechanics and so on, but some core features should really be there. It just pains me because I know, and obviously you guys know by now, that the Warhammer series almost had naval battles, the fantasy one. If you go into the game files, you can actually find some unit cards for the Game 1 races of Warhammer 1 to do the mechanic, but unfortunately just, I guess it was never going to work, I'll be honest with you, for Warhammer Fantasy. It's just way too overpowered. I played Man of War back in the day, but it still pains me to know that that was on the cards, and then it just never happened. The last thing, and I think the most important thing, is stability. When it comes to a Total War game, for the past, God, I don't know how many years, they've always launched in a really awful state. And that can't happen with a Total War 40K, a new historical after so many years waiting, because it's been a while for them, let's be honest there. Even Three Kingdoms isn't a true historical, and Pharaoh is just a setting that a lot of people didn't ask for. And if it happens to Star Wars, I mean, that's a really big IP. You can't have a game come out like Warhammer 3 did, or Attila, or Rome 2, any of those, because making the I'm sorry excuse does not work anymore. I think people have finally wisened up to that and said, no, this isn't going to happen. Shadows of Change is the perfect example here. Pharaoh's release is the perfect example here. Creative Assembly are no longer that small family business, you know, they're not that small developer anymore. They're a larger developer. They're known to be one of the largest ones in the UK, even after a bunch of layoffs too. Whatever comes next for Total War, be it historical, sci-fi, or another fantasy game, well, it would be absolutely embarrassing after everything that's been going on to have a flawed release. And that's genuinely something that scares me, because if something bad happens for the next game, yeah, I feel like that's the end of CA. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I don't want to leave it in a bad note there, but it just kind of makes sense to talk about, because let's be honest, things haven't been going too well. They're better now, thanks to Thrones of Decay, which is very, very important to think about it that way. But there's been more losses than wins, and we desperately need some more wins. But yeah, have a great day, guys. I'm going to be slow with replies because I'm still traveling around the UK. Not sure when this video is coming out. Haven't done the schedule yet. I'll see you all again very, very soon.